Imagine a world where Izuku stayed quirkless, and instead of becoming All Might's prodigy, becomes the legendary Caped Crusader, Batman. Would a hypothetical Izuku Wayne survive his new Rogues Gallery, or will he die trying? This video is going to answer all that and more, so if you go on to enjoy it, you know what to do. That said, enjoy. That movie was awesome! Did you see that, Mom? The way he stood up to so many villains even though he had no chance and still won? Yeah, Izuku, I saw it, Inko would say as they walked down an alleyway, when suddenly, explosions would be heard nearby from a villain attack, as Hiashi Wayne would grab Inko and Izuku and begin rushing them to their car, as suddenly, a villain would be thrown into a car, which would end up colliding with Izuku's parents, as the young boy's hand would be let go moments before the car would crush Inko and Hiashi. And as Izuku would look up, he would see All Might in the distance, who had just taken out a villain at the cost of his parents. And when All Might sees the scene, he immediately calls the police and tries to console Deku, but it wouldn't work. Deku would look at him with eyes that would be engraved in All Might's mind forever, as he would say, "It's your fault I lost them. I hate you, All Might." Izuku would remain silent that entire night and would return to the Wayne mansion, where Alfred would comfort him, followed by a couple years of, basic training in the mountains with ninjas and monks to learn every martial arts style in the world over the course of, the next 10 years, meaning he'd be 18. And I know some of you are probably confused on why that is. Well, let me explain. Personally, I think Batman is a much more mature character. So for this story, the required age limit to enter UA is going to be 18. That said, Izuku's now going to be returning to Japan, and he would have one thing on his mind, and that is to clean up the garbage on the street and to make sure nobody else has to lose their parents the way he did. Eventually, after returning, there would be news coverage of this and rumors of him wanting to become a hero despite being quirkless, and they turn out to be true, with Izuku arriving to UA on a limo the day of the entrance exam and easily passing the written test. After this, Izuku would find himself face to face with a robot as he would rush it, sliding underneath the robot as he would then jump on its back before ripping out its control panel and then rushing toward another robot as he would dodge its punch and begin to dismantle it with his bare hands, as he would eventually accumulate 21 robot points with no gadgets or weapons, mind you. Eventually though, we would get the scene with the 0 pointer. And as everyone else would run away from the robot, Izuku would run toward it, knowing a girl was in danger. He would put everything on the line, as he would get to her, throw the rubble off like it was nothing, and then throw Uraraka out of the way, as the robot would come down on Izuku and crush him. Is what I would say, if not for Nezu deactivating the robot moments before tragedy struck. After this happens, Izuku would then have everyone staring at him, as someone would say, "Isn't that Midoriya Wayne? What's he doing here?" And a lot of murmuring would go down, as Izuku realizes what he just did. He was willing to sacrifice himself for someone else, and Uraraka would be shocked. It wasn't a quirked superhuman, but a quirkless person who risked their life for her. After this, Izuku would walk away and people would try to surround him and ask him questions, but Izuku would look forward as he goes home, where once there, Izuku makes sure something like that never happens again, developing hacking tech to fry robots if he was ever put in that situation ever again. Eventually though, Izuku would get his acceptance letter and the first day of school would roll around the corner, as Izuku would arrive in a Lambo as he makes his way to the class and sits down waiting for Aizawa to get up, since he definitely notices him. Eventually, Uraraka walks in the classroom and thanks Izuku, but midway, Aizawa interrupts her, telling the class to meet him outside, where we would get the quirk apprehension exam, where Izuku would impress everyone there. Being top 3, even though he has no quirk, he would excel in every physical test because that's all he can train. And even though he doesn't blow any tests out of the water, he consistently did amazing in all the tests. Because of this, some of his classmates begin wondering if he's really quirkless, but Izuku just laughs it off, saying of course he is, but that he's trained really hard since he was quirkless, and say his goal was to be the first quirkless hero. But Bakugo chips in, saying, "I'm sure you will. After all, you just have to keep paying your way through this school and then become a hero." As from here, Aizawa chips in saying, "Actually, Bakugo, Izuku here is actually exceptional when it comes to hero work, and he got 71 points in the entrance exam without a quirk," making Bakugo extremely angry since bro practically got shut up. After this, Izuku would go home where on his way to his car, Bakugo tries to shoulder bump him, but Izuku dodges as he sweep kicks him and winks at Bakugo saying, "Don't hurt yourself, buddy," as he drives off in a green Lambo. Once he gets home, Izuku would work on his conditioning as he eventually gets a call from Aizawa who tells him to suit up, that they're going out tonight. Izuku after this would suit up as he would put on his suit and meet Aizawa on the top of a building for some hero patrol, where Izuku would have a flashback to when he first arrived in Gotham, aka Japan, and became a vigilante under the name Red Hood. But since Izuku was just starting off, he got sloppy, and ultimately, Aizawa and Nezu were able to piece together that Izuku Wayne was behind it all. And ultimately, once that came out, Izuku was granted a provisional hero license, so long as he worked with Aizawa. And this is his third time working with him since having their various brawls together. That said though, this night, they're working on a lead on the Yakuza family, trying to put Overhaul down for good, and all they need is evidence to put him down. So that's why Izuku is here, since Izuku is the world's greatest detective. With this, they would arrive to the Yakuza hideout, where they knock out 3 guards unnoticed and are able to get in. Once inside, they end up bumping into 5 more guards, which they swiftly take out as they look through the house for any incriminating evidence, and eventually they find a lever that opens a secret entrance to the room where Eri is being experimented on. And once they see this, they go inside only to see Overhaul using his quirk on her and hear the screams, so Izuku and Aizawa quickly hide as they make a plan, and Aizawa motions his hand to strike as Izuku immediately throws a batarang at Overhaul's hand as it would lodge into his hand, and the caught off guard Overhaul would turn to them, trying to overhaul them, but Aizawa would use his quirk on him as Deku would immediately shoot a stun gun at Overhaul as he would tank it, and Izuku would up the voltage, eventually knocking him out as they find prototypes for Overhaul's quirk erasure drug as they take it in for evidence and grab Eri, making their way out with Eri and Overhaul. As on their way out, they're noticed by Kendo Rappa, who immediately realizing something's wrong, rushes Izuku, slamming him into the wall with his shoulder as Izuku gets back up and would rush Kendo, weaving all his attacks as using the blades on his arms, he would slice him over and over with direct punches as Kendo would land a couple blows, but Izuku would grow tired of this and stop holding back as he leaves himself open to an attack, baiting Kendo as he would take the bait, and Izuku swiftly dodges, breaking his arm as he would put him in a chokehold and put him straight to sleep. After this, they escape calling in backup, who finished the job while Izuku analyzes the drug as he realizes what it is, and he would create his own version that would temporarily restrict quirk usage, a very useful gadget. But eventually, the heroes versus villains arc would roll around the corner, and with this being the case, we jump into Izuku in class as All Might barges in and informs them of their combat training activity of the day, as they all select random teams, and just like in canon, Izuku would be paired up with Uraraka, as Izuku would have a conversation with her before the match, with her asking, what in the world would motivate him to be a hero? Doesn't he already have it all? And Izuku tells her as he would be cut off by All Might through the intercom, telling them to begin, as he smiles at her and says, "I'll tell you another day," and they would begin. Izuku immediately activates the X-ray mode on his mask as he would see the room the bomb is inside of and would even see Bakugo rushing them. So he tells Uraraka to meet him there, giving her a route to avoid Bakugo as Izuku places smoke bombs all over the area with a remote control to set them off, as Bakugo would be using his explosions trying to find Deku, screaming through the hallways when suddenly the bombs would go off, and Bakugo would turn to see Izuku punch him in the face, as he would then go for a kick, but would be dodged by Bakugo, who would shoot an explosion to move out of the way, as Izuku throws a couple batarangs at Bakugo's gauntlets as they fry the circuitry, not letting Bakugo even use them, as he then rushes in again and they go blow for blow, with Izuku's hits being way more calculated. Eventually, Izuku would drop a high-frequency gadget as it would stun Bakugo, and Izuku would be able to slam Bakugo's head into the wall, knocking him out as he ties him up and then goes toward Uraraka. As he would then ambush Ida with her, and as Ida would be distracted with her, Izuku would sneak past him, grabbing the bomb without Ida even noticing, and All Might would yell out, "Hero Team wins!" After this, everyone in class would be shocked at his combat capabilities, with the guys admitting that they thought he might be a pushover, but with that performance, they wouldn't want to go up against him at all. And Momo even brings up how he's a genius for using the environment to his advantage, and asking how he has so many gadgets, with Izuku pointing to his belt on his waist and Momo being super impressed, saying she'll definitely take notes on his fighting style. After this, Izuku would then make his way out of UA as he bumps into Bakugo again, and Bakugo would be bruised up with a bandage on his nose, as Izuku apologizes, saying it wasn't personal. But Bakugo just looks at him in rage, about to attack him, if not for Aizawa, who walks in on them, so Bakugo just walks away, with Izuku saying, "That kid's got issues," to Aizawa, saying he's not sure if that's a hero or a villain, with Aizawa saying if not for his quirk, he'd never have made it into this school, at least not with this attitude, and they laugh as the day ends, and we now jump into the USJ event. We pick this arc off with the students arriving to the USJ facility, where Kurogiri would appear like in canon, before then teleporting everyone to their original locations. And as Izuku lands in the water, he immediately realizes he's out of his element, so he tries to swim away, only to be saved by Tsuyu. From here, Izuku would shoot his grappler to dry ground, as he would tell Tsuyu and Mineta to grab on, as they make their way to dry land, and Izuku then tosses a small device that releases a massive charge of lightning, which completely takes out the villains who try rushing them. One would be unaffected, however, and rush Izuku, only for him to weave his punch and then sweep him as he breaks his arm. And noticing Aizawa was fighting multiple villains, he jumps in to help him handle them, as they proceed to body each and every single one of them. And as Shigaraki watches his minions get absolutely destroyed, he would begin losing his cool, as he calls for Kurogiri to call for the Nomu, as it would appear and he would order it to kill them. So the Nomu would rush them both, as they both immediately jump out of the way of a punch that leaves a crater in the ground. As they both look at each other, and Izuku asks if he used his quirk on that thing, with Aizawa saying he was, as the Nomu stares at them, and immediately Izuku's eyes widen as he would throw the sound gadget at it, and the Nomu would crush it with its foot, as it would run at Izuku and send him flying back, as it then rushes Aizawa, who would try to fend it off but wouldn't be able to, as it would grab him like a toddler and begin flinging him around, with Izuku throwing batarangs at it, but it would be completely unaffected, as the Nomu would just heal and they would bounce off its body. So Izuku immediately takes a gun out as he shoots the Nomu, and it would turn to him rushing at Izuku as he would try to go for the head, but the Nomu would be so fast and strong that the quirk nullifying bullet would do nothing, and it would fling him away as it would run at Deku trying to finish him off, when suddenly All Might would arrive. And Izuku would look at him with his vision being extremely blurry, as he would watch as All Might would appear and completely dismantle the Nomu, who has no shock absorption anymore or healing, mind you. So the battle would be a lot easier than it was in canon, and after the Nomu would be taken care of, Shigaraki would escape with Kurogiri, and Izuku would be left to watch as All Might saved them. And he then asks him if he's okay, as All Might would look at him and Izuku would say, "I'm fine," as he walks off, and All Might looks at him wondering where he knows that kid from. Something about him seems familiar, but he doesn't remember from where, so he would put it at the back of his mind. And after this, the students would go on a 1-week break where Izuku would re-watch the live recording of his battle with the Nomu from his suit and reminisce on everything he could have done better. So Izuku decides he needs to be prepared to handle superpowered beings that completely outclass him, and he would create a new batsuit capable of withstanding fire, explosions, ice, and super strength attacks, as well as bullets and knives and poison darts and everything of the matter. Izuku, now with all the new battles that he's been going through, and with the fact that he's been going out with Aizawa for patrols, Izuku's suits and tech just keep getting better and better, and now Izuku's able to keep up with superpowered beings like All Might, since of course we are talking about Batman here, somebody who prepares for every single situation. And let me tell you guys, he is prepared to plan for every single one of his classmates. So by the time the UA Sports Festival arc would come around, Izuku would be more than prepared to handle the task. beginning with the race. Izuku, once he would be frozen by Todoroki, would melt the ice under his feet as he would use his suit and he would begin rushing the 0-pointers. And using the tech he would have developed after the UA entrance exam, he would hack them as the robots would be taken care of, as he would run right by them, and after this, Izuku would then use his grapple gun to get across the next obstacle, followed by his suit's super speed to keep up with Bakugo and Todoroki, as he would finish in 3rd place behind them, ready for the cavalry battle, as he would team up with Uraraka, Tokiyami, and Mei Hatsume, as they would play it safe, going for weaker teams' headbands to make it to the 1v1 battles, where Izuku would face Shinso as his first opponent, and as soon as the battle starts, Shinso would make some very rude remarks about Izuku, as Deku just rushes at him to beat him, but Shinso finally says something about his parents, which really hits a nerve, and he finally says something back, falling onto one knee as he begins to try to fight off against the mind control, but ultimately, he wouldn't be able to, and having a blank expression, he would turn around beginning to walk off the edge, when suddenly, he would turn around saying, "Boo," as Shinso would be completely stunned on how he broke out, and Izuku says, "It wasn't easy," kicking him off the arena as he moves on to the next match, but before he does so, he would look to Shinso as he tells him that he definitely belongs in the hero course, and he's gonna make sure that that happens. As from here, Izuku would then go on to face off against Todoroki, as they would find themselves face to face with each other, and Todoroki would immediately start the battle off nonchalant, shooting an ice attack at Izuku, who would shatter it using his suit's super strength, as he would rush at Todoroki, who creates barriers of ice, saying, "I thought you were quirkless," and Izuku says, "I am," as he would break the ice, seeing Todoroki, and in a flash, Izuku would throw a flashbang at his face, blinding him, as Izuku proceeds to beat on Todoroki and knock him off of the ring, followed by Bakugo, who would tell Izuku he's dead meat before the match, and tell Izuku to feel free to use all the gadgets he wants. He's ready this time, saying he'll need them, with Izuku laughing, knowing exactly what he's trying to say, as he would prepare himself and the battle would begin, as Bakugo immediately shoots himself to the sky and he would begin trying to do a long-range strategy using nothing but AP shots. However, Izuku's suit would be completely unfazed as he stands there, taking it, shocking Bakugo, who realizes he has to do this up close. And so, he would land on the ground as he tells Izuku he's lucky that suit's on him. If not, he'd be weak and nothing, just another quirkless loser. As Izuku says, "No, take it away and I'd still beat you. But take away your quirk and you're nothing. You rely on it too much." As from here, he would then look at him and say, "Here, I'll show you." As he shoots a bullet at Bakugo, which would dampen his quirk, and it would hit him right on the shoulder. As Bakugo would say, "That's your big plan? Shoot me with a rubber bullet? Don't make me laugh." As Izuku then looks at him and says, "Nah, this is it," as he rushes in and begins absolutely dismantling Bakugo with his bare hands, as Bakugo would try using his quirk, but he can't, and Izuku would land blow after blow, before then telling Bakugo his problem is his confidence and cockiness, that he needs to train on his body as much as he trains on his quirk. His martial arts need work, his explosions need refining, and his temper's gonna get him killed. As he would then land the finishing blow, sending Bakugo off of the arena, and shortly after this, Izuku would be given his medal for his victory over everyone, and he would go on to give a speech about quirkless people. As after this, we would jump to Izuku's point of view in class, where he would sit down at his desk and be told to pick a hero name as well as an internship, with Izuku picking the name Batman, and he would say that he's going to be interning with Aizawa. Because of that, we jump into Aizawa's point of view, as he would ask Izuku what case he wants to work on this time, as Izuku brings up the hero killer, saying that they definitely need to take him down before Ida gets to him, saying that he noticed how Ida's been acting different, and that the fact that he went with that hero is not some random thing. He's definitely feeling some type of way, and Izuku understands, so they need to capture him that very night. So what they would do is they would get on the Batwing and make their way to Hosu City, where they would use Izuku's detective skills to analyze and find Stain. Once they would do so, they would pull up on Stain, and they would both be about to jump him when suddenly Izuku holds his hand out as he says, "I got this." He would then crack his neck and knuckles as he then rushes at Stain, piecing him up, making easy work of him, considering that Batman is a way better fighter than Stain. Not only that, but Stain was not going to be getting any of his blood, considering the fact that there was absolutely no way that Stain's knives were going to be breaking through his armor. And so, The Stain arc would finish before it even began. So after this, Izuku would then tell Aizawa that now they can finally focus on real things, as he would go on to show him the files he has on the League of Villains, saying he's been doing a little bit of looking into them on the 1 week break that they had off, and say that they've been a looming threat ever since the USJ. He says that he wants to make sure that something like that never happens again, and so he investigated the real leader's whereabouts and found out that the leader's name is All For One, a villain who has had most of his crimes covered up or entirely deleted. But he was able to recover a couple of phone calls and even videos of All Might and him fighting, saying that this man is not somebody to be taken lightly. So after this would happen, they would both suit up, and Izuku would tell Aizawa that his suit definitely needs a couple upgrades. So Izuku would give Aizawa a brand new suit that would be a lot more protected, and it would be so much more lighter, flexible, and durable. And so they would be more than ready to attack the League of Villains hideout, which this time wouldn't even have members like Dabi, Spinner, or Toga. So the League would be more than just unprepared, but also not ready for the ambush Izuku and Aizawa were planning. So as they would arrive, they would stealthily make their way through the air vents, where they would see the layout of the place, and eventually they would see a couple of villains as well as Shigaraki and Kurogiri. Immediately, Aizawa uses his quirk to cancel all of their quirks, as they would drop down and Izuku would drop smoke bombs, quickly taking all of them down together Batman style, as immediately they would take hold of Shigaraki and Kurogiri. As in this moment, the police would arrive not even 30 seconds later, as the members would be taken out and the TV would turn on, as it would be All For One, who says they've made a huge mistake. But Izuku laughs, saying, "No, we didn't," clicking a button as All For One's Nomu facility would explode, and Izuku says, "Checkmate." As All For One would disconnect from the TV in a rage, and Izuku would turn to Aizawa before then saying, "We don't have a lot of time, we need to get to All For One now," as he would be tracking the last location where the signal was coming from, and they would immediately get on the Batwing as they would fly to where the last location was, and when they arrive, they would realize that this place would be completely abandoned. All For One clearly left and took all the evidence they could have found. And Izuku, not being too fond of this, would straight up kick a car and send it like 20 meters away, as he would then turn to Aizawa and say they need to make their way to Tartarus, where he would end up arriving and remember that they ended up catching a villain broker there. So Izuku would interrogate him Batman style, putting a chair there, not letting any of the cops stop him, and he would begin to beat on him, as he would eventually get a bunch of locations of All For One bases, and once he got the information he needed, he took the chair out of the way as he walks out of there, and a cop would try to stop him, saying he can't treat prisoners like that. But Izuku says, "You heroes are too soft. If I have to break a couple bones to save hundreds of lives, I will." As he would walk right past the cop, and Aizawa would be staring at him saying, "You know I'm still in charge of this. You can't treat prisoners like that." And Izuku would look at him and say, "I didn't take it far, Aizawa. I don't know what you're talking about. This little hero society has gone way too soft. Everyone can be a hero nowadays, and they're getting sloppy. If not for that, they'd still be here." And Aizawa asks, "Who's they?" As he says, "My parents, damn it. It's only been a couple years and the world's forgotten about them. Hell, even All Might forgot about the terrified kid whose parents he killed that night. I'm not gonna let innocent people die while I stand here. I'm not gonna get sloppy. I'm taking All For One down whatever it takes, and he's gonna be behind bars tonight." As they get there to one of his bases, and once there, Aizawa and Izuku would sneak inside, as the unsuspecting All For One would think they're out on hero patrol somewhere else, since Izuku called up a favor, somebody who had an illusion quirk, to make it seem like they were on patrol. And so, All For One's guard was more than dropped. So once they arrive, Izuku and Aizawa would quickly run through the place, as Izuku would finally see All For One, who would be talking to a doctor, and they'd be talking about Nomus and killing Batman, or himself. As All For One after this would then say something he should have never said, as he would then go on to ask the doctor if they've taken hostage of that butler that he seems so fond of, as the doctor would laugh, saying of course they have. Hearing this, Izuku immediately shoots a quirk nullifying bullet at All For One, and he would rush at him, as Aizawa grabs the doctor, not letting him get away, and Izuku would begin beating down on All For One, shattering the mask he has on, as he tells him if he even touched a hair on him, he's dead. As All For One laughs maniacally, but Izuku knocks him out, as Aizawa would interrogate the doctor, and they would end up finding out the location of Alfred. as they would make sure both of them are behind bars, and they would end up rescuing Alfred, completely getting rid of the threat of the League of Villains. Oh yeah, and did I mention, this all happened in one night, straight Batman style. But on the last day of their nighttime patrols, Izuku would find a group of muggers with clown masks and take them down as he rushes to the woman they were assaulting, and as he grabs her, he looks at her face as she would have a petrified smile on her face, and Izuku would grab a thug as he says, "What did you do to her?" And the thug says, "I don't know, he told us to test out his formula, that's all I know, I swear." And Izuku would say, "Who exactly is he?" As the villain says, "It's the Joker."